So, you've just started Bolt Action version 3 and you want to put your first army together, but you're not sure where to start. Well, let's take a look at the basics. Welcome to the Dice Gods. My name is Hydra, and today we are going to be looking at building an army, a list for Bolt Action version 3. It's going to be pretty generic overview. I'm not going to go too deep. This isn't me talking about very specific nation-related tactics. It is just purely if you have just joined Bolt Action, or just looking to join Bolt Action, and you want to know the core concepts behind list writing, some tips, tricks, points in various directions. That's what this video is for. But before we get into that, as ever, a big thank you to our Patreons and members, including Old Man Rogers, Runic Wolf, and Chaos Discordia. You guys absolutely rock. If you like what we're doing, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing. If you really like what we're doing, then consider becoming a member of the channel yourself or joining our Patreon, because that really helps support me to do more stuff for you. Let's dive into it. What we're going to start off first is looking at some outlines of some important information you need to know about creating a list, and then we're going to actually dive into the different platoons that will constitute every list that you write, basically. So, basically, let's start with the basics. Every list will have a points limit. That will be the points limit you set with the game. That will be organised with your opponent, or if you're going to a tournament, it will be set by the TO. Now, as it stands at the moment, point limits are 1,000 to 1,250, so 1,250 points. That's kind of the upper sort of tier that you're looking at as standard. Some tournaments have lower. I myself am running an escalation league at the moment that started around, I think, 700 points and is going to 1,250 points in increments. So it does depend on your TO, but get that one clear. You're going to spend your points, and you need to make sure you know how many you have. You will also have an infantry focus. Bolt Action remains a infantry-based game. Without infantry, you're not capturing objectives. There's a whole load of things you can't do if you don't have warm bodies on the ground. Tin cans with guns are great, but you are going to need people on the ground. So, be under no illusions, this is an infantry-focused game. You may also have a maximum number of order dice. So for every particular squad or vehicle that you add to your list, you will have an order dice added to the bag. If you don't know how to play the game, essentially that's how you activate every turn. There's a bag with everybody's dice in, and you pull a dice out, and whoever's die comes out, they get to activate a unit. So some tournaments and some players like to cap the number of dice that you can have. It's to stop things getting silly. Certain armies have really cheap units, and therefore they can spam large volumes of activations, and having substantially more activations than your opponent is a big advantage. You may also find that there is an era set for the game or the tournament, so that will be early, mid, or late war. Within most army builders, it will tell you, certainly the official one, it will tell you whether a unit is early, mid, or late war. And if you're playing in a mid-war tournament, you can only choose units that were available in mid-war, effectively. It adds flavour. Sometimes events or an opponent will want to try a specific theatre or want to try a specific battle even. And the era will, then be very, very crucial. And you'll need to be able to complete the missions and objectives that you may face. Now, sometimes you'll know what they are in advance. Other times you'll roll them at the start of the game. So it's important that you know that your list is capable of achieving the missions or is sensible at doing those missions. You can find all the missions in the main rulebook if you have not seen them yet. So, those are our basics. The anatomy of a list. There are 6 different platoons that will constitute every list that you write. There is the rifle platoon, I can't even say the word, this is going to go well. The rifle platoon, the heavy weapons platoon, Recce platoon, engineer platoon, artillery platoon, armoured platoon. They all have their own different and unique compositions, and we are going to cover on what they are in a minute. Every list must have at least one rifle platoon. That is a requirement standard fact. Then you can take one of each other type of platoon for every rifle platoon that you take. So, for example, if you wanted to take 2 heavy weapons platoons, you would need to take 2 rifle platoons as well. If you only want one of every other type of platoon, then you only need 1 rifle platoon. It's kind of a tax to unlock things, and it ensures you do have a base and a grounding of infantry in your list as standard. Each and every one of those platoons must meet a minimum requirement. As we go through them, we're going to run through those 6 now and talk about what they are and how they work and all this kind of stuff. We're going to talk about what the requirements are. So let's have a look at the eponymous and ubiquitous and every other quitous rifle platoon. So this will be the backbone of every list that you write. You must have a platoon commander. I told you I couldn't say it. Platoon commander in every platoon in some form or another. These guys head up the platoon. They're given the orders, and they actually give out buffs, depending on their quality, to the rest of the list. So a platoon commander can, for example, perform something called a snap 2, which lets you activate multiple units by drawing 1 dice out of the bag. So you draw that dice out, you give it to the platoon commander, and then he does something called a snap 2. He points at a group of guys that are close to him, their dice come out of the bag, and they activate in that big chunk. It's one of those things where, in a clutch moment when your back's to the wall and you absolutely need to get those shots off, a platoon commander can absolutely make that happen. So they are really important. With the armies that are receiving their armies of book, so every army in V3 has a list. Most of them are in, or a lot of them are in the main rulebook. Some of them are in the expansion PDF that came out with the main rulebook. They are then being upgraded with armies of books, which add lots of new features. For the Germans, which was the first, the platoon commander can have a whole load of troopers with him and actually becomes a viable and effective and unpleasant squad in his own right. So they're not as pointless as they first seem. They're actually a very useful thing and something you should invest in with care. The next requirement is a set of warm bodies, in this case 2 infantry squads or infantry sections or whatever they're called by your specific nation. These are your warm bodies. They will do a lot of the grunt work, unsurprisingly. So you'll have squads of these that will specialise in laying down large volumes of fire. The guys at the top that you can see here, there's 2 LMGs in that squad. They will be good at putting down a weight of fire that will suppress and take out the enemy. You can also build infantry squads for close assault, or even to an extent anti-tank duties. There's things that they can be built around, and depending on how you want to run the list, you can customize as you go through. It's a lot of fun. It's one of the things you tweak and tinker with for ages. Like, okay, well, if I stick a light machine gun on this guy, and then I stick some grenades on this guy, well, in the entire squad in that instance, there's all kinds of stuff you can do. And it's a lot of the fun when you're tinkering with this sort of stuff. But that there, 1 platoon commander and 2 infantry squads, that is the required elements for a valid rifle platoon. You could now move on and get more platoons and this squad would be done. However, if you wanted to, you can add more infantry squads or a medic, which is the guy that just appeared on the screen. The medic comes in various forms, either an individual dudesman, as you see here, or as a vehicle, an ambulance, or whatever. They basically give a 6-up save or secondary save to your infantry if they're within a suitable range. So medics can be useful. They're also a cheap die. They're like 20-30 points, and it's an extra die in the bag. So when it comes to the activations and making sure that you have plenty, these guys are kind of good. Then we have the forward observer. There he is. These guys call in artillery and aircraft strikes. They can be incredibly devastating. They can also act as spotters for indirect fire weapons as well, so they have multiple use, but they are quite expensive, so be aware of the fact that it is going to hurt, but when they sort of kick it up a bit, your enemy is going to know all about it. Then we have the sniper team. These guys are incredibly situational. Again, they're a relatively cheap die in the bag, but their fire damage output can be quite limited. I've had sniper teams that have been absolute heroes and done nothing but violence, and I have had other ones that have been a complete waste of points and time, and it was kind of embarrassing to have them on the field. Your mileage may vary. The internet is frequently out on how good or how bad they are, but they exist. Anti-tank teams, they speak for themselves. They are small teams to take out tanks. We also have light mortars. These guys, again, are a very cheap dice in the bag, and they can do some work. I've seen light mortars put templates on squads and just generally be a pain in the butt, which is what they can be really good at. And then you can have transports to pick everybody up and go for the Sunday afternoon drive and get them downfield and get them on objectives. That is a rifle platoon. You need one of these minimum. This is the only required, obligatory platoon. Everything after this is optional. Next up, we have a heavy weapons platoon. This is where the violence is. Again, they need a platoon commander. He does the same job as with the rifle platoon, but further back on the field, because you are going to put machine guns or mortar teams in this platoon. So the machine guns are MMGs, they're medium machine guns, or HMGs if you're running Americans. And they kind of sit in one spot and just fire huge volumes of lead downfield. That's their whole shtick. Mortar teams, light, medium or heavy. Again, dropping various sort of quality of warheads on foreheads downfield. You may also get spotters for your mortars so that they can be positioned on the table further downfield, and they can call in shots from mortars and mortar teams and stuff like that. So these are kind of, as the name implies, they're the heavy weapons guys. You can then get an additional 3 machine gun teams, or an additional 3 mortar teams, or an additional 3 anti-tank teams if you want them, and then transports to store everybody in. The thing about the heavy weapons platoon is they're relatively cheap. So for the Germans, for example, a medium machine gun, regular, I think is around 55 points. That is 55 points of Daka that sits in the backfield and is a dice in the bag. They are incredibly potent. If you have a objective to defend, they are incredibly potent. The mortars can do some work. The anti-tank teams can do some work. This is a very, very useful and versatile platoon. It shouldn't be overlooked. Absolutely. So, heavy weapons platoon. Recce platoon. Now things get crazy. So, again, platoon commander, same gig as before, and this time only 1 infantry squad is required. Because these are reconnaissance guys. As an additional requirement to having that 1 platoon commander and 1 infantry squad, you also have to take enough vehicles to transport all infantry in that platoon. So you have to have enough vehicles to reconnaissance with, to recce with. Is that really useful? Well, what recce gives you, or gives your vehicles, is an additional ability called, guess what? Recce. Recce enables vehicles to drive as fast backwards as they can forward, and normally reversing is at half speed. And it also enables a vehicle which hasn't been activated this turn, if it is shot at, it can basically get out of the way. It can drive off and try and get out of line of fire or get further away from that particular shot. This is hilarious. It does eat the activation for that vehicle, but it is absolutely worth it. So if you have a vehicle full of an infantry squad that need to go off and do an objective, and suddenly a tank comes around the corner, you don't have to wait to see whether your transport survives. You can just foot to the floor, zoom off around a corner where it can't see you, where the tank can't see you, and what happens is that shot is then wasted. They don't get to make that shot because you're no longer a valid target. It's hilarious, and we love it. You may then, with this platoon, add in more infantry squads, you can add in forward observers, and you can add in anti-tank teams. Again, If you take those, you have to take sufficient vehicles to transport them as well. Even though you will probably never transport your forward observer, and it's unlikely you'll stick an anti-tank team in a vehicle, you have to have enough space in your vehicles to transport them. And to be clear, every transport vehicle has a maximum transport capacity. So a Hanomag, for example, has a capacity of up to 12. So you could take a full squad of 10 and an anti-tank team in there, or say that you would, and that would give enough space. That would tick the box for the Recce platoon requirements. So just keep that in mind. If you're using something like the official army builder, it will tell you if you haven't done it and you are a bad wargamer. It will let you know. But yeah, that's the joy of Recce, is that ability on your vehicles to basically not be shot. Very, very tasty. Then we have the engineer platoon, and things are going to get toasty. There is our platoon commander again. There he is. Isn't he glorious? Then we have 2 engineer squads. Now, if you remember looking at our rifle squads previously, they had guys with rifles, guys with submachine guns, maybe guys with a light machine gun. Nothing really fancy. What you may notice here is that we have guys running around with mines in their hands, they're the big yellow things, and flamethrowers. Engineer teams are really, really violent. They are really, really violent and a lot of fun. They often bring a lot of unique weapons, a lot of unique options. They also have special abilities for assaulting fortifications and for taking on stuff like that. So they have a really minefields as well they can take down. They have a lot of uses on the field, but you do tend to pay for them. But they are a lot of fun, and they do have lots of unique stuff. So this is the new German veteran plastic kit from Warlord for bolt action. I bought this, and all the toys are in there, and it's well worth getting because you can just build so many engineer options. So I would recommend you check that one out. But by the way, that's the requirements for the engineer platoon. You then can get additional squads or additional flamethrowers if you really don't want to have friends, because flamethrowers are not pleasant. And then you get transports to stick everybody in, to drive them downfield, so you can get on with that barbecuing sooner rather than later. Overall, really, really good fun. I'm a big fan of the engineer platoon. And there are some unique options for transports and stuff in there as well for certain nations. The fact you can get that 2-man flamethrower team is quite naughty as well. I mean, they're cheap-ish. And they can really, really do some work. Some of the things that I've done with flamethrowers, it's been horrific, and I've not used them that often, but enough that they're definitely going to see the tabletop more. So yeah, your engineer platoon. Now we have the artillery platoon. Would you believe? A platoon commander. And then some artillery. So that's field artillery, anti-aircraft or anti-tank guns will appear in this particular platoon. When you've got that minimum requirement of 1 platoon commander and 1 field artillery or blah, 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 you can then add up to 3 more. And you can then add to that transport or tow vehicles that can pull these vehicles or these guns around, because they can be very hard to move, or not possible to move, I think, from memory in certain circumstances. Hitching them on the back of a vehicle, you can just belt across the field, drag them along behind you. You can always move them, what are we talking about? But it lets you move faster, lets you move quicker. So this is your real big guns. If you like big guns, this is where you'll find them. I think that there are almost always better options in bolt action than taking an artillery platoon. Much as I love it, and I do have artillery for both my armies, both my British and my German forces, I do have viable artillery platoons for both of them. The probability that I'm going to take them consistently is pretty low. Probably the only exception to that is the 25-pounder for the British, which is just a bit dirty, to be honest with you. But on the whole, this is kind of for the people who want to play historically, or want to play a specific battle. This is where you probably see the artillery platoons, but I think if you're playing competitively in tournaments, I think there are probably better options out there than this, unfortunately. Speaking of armoured platoons, my goodness, did these sort of get a bit of a buff in version 3. So historically in version 2, you would maybe see one vehicle in a list. This armoured platoon makes it so much easier to gain access to and run armour that is becoming more prevalent. The Armoured Platoon consists of a platoon command vehicle, which is similar to a commander in all the other platoons that we've seen, but he's in a vehicle, and he's more limited on who he can give orders to and stuff like that, give the snap 2 orders to. You then have to get an additional vehicle. So you have to have 2 vehicles in your Armoured Platoon. They don't have to be big and expensive. You can get cheap vehicles if you just want to unlock a big one. And then to that, you can add up to 3 additional vehicles, which will round out your Armoured Platoon and is the last platoon we need to talk about. And last but not least, a couple of tips and tricks for you if you're a true newbie to the game. So first, find balance in composition. This is primarily an infantry game. That's absolutely true. But you will need some anti-tank options. It's good to have them kicking around. You don't want to find yourself in a position where your opponent brings 2 bits of light armour and there's nothing you can do about it. That is a nightmare scenario, and it's probably not going to end well. Likewise, you don't just want anti-tank. You don't just want vehicles. You need warm bodies on the ground. Finding that mix of large volumes of shots from medium machine guns, light machine guns, even heavy machine guns, and that punch from whether it be a tank, multiple tanks, autocannons, a artillery piece, whatever. You need to have that balance in there, and there needs to be kind of, redundancy as well. If you have a single guy with a bazooka, and that is your only anti-tank option, you can guarantee your opponent's going to kill that. So you need to have that balance within there. You need to find a balance in quality. So there are different standards: inexperienced, regular, veteran quality for troops. You don't want everything inexperienced because it shoots worse and it's likely to run away. Equally, you don't want everything veteran because it's going to be so expensive that you're not going to end up with many troopers on the ground. You need to kind of make sure that you have enough dice and enough hard hitters, and it's that kind of balance, there's that word again, that's really crucial that you need to find inside the game. Also, don't max everything out. I know when I wrote my first list, I went in, saw my Panzer Grenadier squad and thought, right, so they can have up to 10 guys, I shall take 10 guys. While that is good from a morale perspective, there are buffs for that, it is expensive, and you end up with a lot of guys with rifles who spend most of the game stood there going, what am I? Everything's out of range, I can't do anything about that. Which is a waste of points. It's points you could have spent elsewhere. So, for example, with my Germans, one of my really favourite squads is a 6-man squad with 2 light machine guns, 2 loaders, because you have to have loaders to work with light machine guns, and then an officer and basically an ablative wound. The first hit that comes in is taken by that guy. He's the first one to die. Those are around 100 points per squad, and they put out a large volume of fire. They are surprisingly mobile, surprisingly killy, and it's great. If I added, I could add another 4 rifles into that squad, but what would they do? They'd be more ablative wounds, which I could almost get another squad for the amount that those 4 would cost me, and I'd be more flexible, have another dice in the bag, more mobile, etc., etc. So there's that. Bigger isn't always better. Now, again, I'm a German player, so King Tigers, Panthers, these things, the mouse, which we can now get in this game, which is obscene, they are impressive and phenomenal, and their main weapon fires once a turn. That's it. If the game goes to 6-7 turns, you're going to fire it 6 times, if you're lucky. If it doesn't get fragged on the first turn, if it doesn't get pinned so it can't hit anything, it's got 1 shot. So just be mindful that while these big vehicles are impressive, and they are, and can be useful, and they can, that doesn't necessarily guarantee the win. You know, skilled players can bring a Tiger to the table and use that and be devastating with it. But as a new player, maybe give yourself better options with smaller units, less powerful units to start off with, and give yourself more bodies on the ground and have a more durable list. That kind of leads us to competition. Competition isn't everything. You can just play this game for historical, you can play it for fun. You don't need to go off and find out what the best lists are on the internet and min-max everything and all the rest of it, because what I always find interesting is when you see the best list for any game system, it's not just for bolt action, but for any game system, that implies a whole load of prerequisites. This is the best list. Cool. That's the best list in your area based on the opponents that you play, the game styles that you play, the units they have, what you have. There's a whole load of different things in there. Yeah, there are certain things that at the moment are better than others. Light autocannons at the moment, they are horrifically deadly. I think they're brilliant. It's great. But that doesn't mean to say that a list that consists of vehicles which are only packing light autocannons is an auto-win. It doesn't mean that by any stretch of the imagination. So try and play for yourself, and most importantly, have fun. Enjoy what you're doing. Don't be pressured into playing a way you don't want to play. If you don't want to play historically accurate, don't play historically accurate. If you only want to play historically accurate, then don't go for casual games. This is your hobby. Enjoy it. Have fun. And yeah, I think that's the best message to leave this one on. Enjoy what you do. This is your free time and your personal time. So just enjoy it. You're never going to get the time back. This is supposed to be fun. Find it, play it. So that is my very, very basic beginner's guide to writing lists for bolt action. If you are a newbie, if you have any questions, do put them in the comments below. If you're a veteran, give your thoughts on this. What other basic, and I mean basic, hints and tips would you give to new players? If you'd like to see more on list writing for specific nations, let me know. Always happy to do the videos the community wants to see. But for now, that is the basics of list writing for bolt action. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you again soon. Goodbye.